Hi, I'm Stephen Garvey with National Citizens Alliance, and today we're going to go over what we call firearm confiscation and the Great Reset. And I have with me Troy. He's an NCA member from Manitoba. Both of us are firearm owners and we are hunters. And so we feel we're in a position to talk about this, but I'm just going to mute Troy for now. I'm going to go through three documents that's going to show you unequivocally what's going on in Canada and throughout the West regarding firearm confiscation. And we're going to bring Troy in at the end of this, but it's important that we get the factual basis of what's going on, because you're not going to hear this in the fake media. You're not going to hear this in Ottawa. You're just going to be misdirected. But we're going to lay out the facts today. But the important thing that people need to realize that there's incremental steps. It's from government to government, year to year, and they keep encroaching on firearm owners, their ability to use firearms for whether for hunting, recreational, or other means. Part of this is the fundamental premise of this is divide and conquer. So there's all kinds of divisions in our society that are perpetuating misinformation. We argue there's multi-controlled opposition who are pretending to be opposed or against, but they're all working together. And then we have censorship and vilification. We had one of our posts notifying people, firearm owners on Reddit, and we were attacked quite viciously by an NDP operative. And this operative was denying the Great Reset, denying all the stuff about firearm confiscation. And guess what? They ended up getting our post censored. That's what they do, is censor. They vilify. They don't want an honest dialogue. But we're going to rip it right open tonight. But mistake not, the Great Reset is rooted fundamentally in UN Agenda 2030 and UN Agenda 21. And in case you don't know, the so-called conservatives adopted UN Agenda 21, which is a global plan in the name of sustainability, but it's really about global governance, open borders. Firearm confiscation is one of them. They call it actually disarmament. And UN Agenda 2030, which was adopted in 2015 by the Harper regime, is about a national plan of this agenda. This isn't made up. This has been going on for decades, and all the steps are incremental. I had three reports. I'm going to go through them quickly. We're going to look at the chat, and we're looking forward to all your comments, and we will respond to them. The first document I'm going to look at is Bill C-21, which is in the process of being made into law now. It might be in its third reading right now, but I have this document right here. We're going to put it up. There's the document there. We're going to just go through this document quickly so you're up to speed. Then we're going to look at UN Agenda 2030 and look at actual documents showing what's going on, the bigger picture. So here's this document. It's claiming it's going to make our society safer. It's a pretty broad range document, and it's built off Bill C-71, which actually banned around, I think it's 1,500 firearms, which is disappointing. That's a form of confiscation that's already happening. But I'm just going to go through some of the key aspects of Bill C-21. It's not all bad, but the underlying thrust of this bill is firearm disarmament on the local level across Canada. And the first one, it's talking about combat intimate partner gender-based violence, self-harm involving firearms. Great. That's something NCA supports. We don't believe anyone who's not mentally stable, anyone who is in a violent relationship should be likely suspended from having that firearm. We don't want them to do undue harm. Our concern here, they're talking about a red flag regime, enable anyone to make an application to a court for an order to immediately remove firearms for up to 30 days. Our concern here with this is that it could be abused. There could be people who are trying to get back at someone. So we would like to see mechanisms that would prevent abuse of this. And then we have a yellow flag situation here. This is a license suspension. The chief firearms officer has the ability to suspend any individual's license up to 30 days. So this is another step towards firearm confiscation, disarmament. That's pretty powerful, that the chief firearms officer has the ability, would have the ability to suspend someone. Again, what are the reasons for this? This could be abused too. What are the checks and balances? So on the surface these are good, but what about potential abuse? Surrender of firearms pending legal challenge of license revocation. And this is based on a legal challenge of license registration certificate. That's pretty harsh. Why doesn't the legal challenge play out in court and then deal with the firearms? But they want to take them as this challenge is going on. Again, the direction is towards disarmament. Fight gun smuggling and trafficking, yes. Increase the maximum penalties for trafficking, smuggling related offenses. That's fine. There's a lot of illegal firearms crossing the border. That's where most of them come from. Why not? Also, they've actually hired a lot more border security, but maybe that should be more of an emphasis too, securing the border. Disclosure of information to Canadian law enforcement agencies, sharing some firearm licensing registration data between RCMP and local law enforcement agencies. Well, they're already doing that, so that's nothing new. Support municipalities that wish to restrict handguns. Again, this is in the thrust of confiscation. The federal government's not willing to put a ban on handguns. They're starting at the municipal level. And this reminds me of ECLI, which is the UN Sustainable City Program. And it's all about creating peaceful, inclusive societies. And obviously, the UN's envisioned that does not include ownership of handguns. So this is one of the incremental steps. So any municipality can now create bylaws to basically ban handguns in their municipality. Again, this is leading a clear indication of leading to firearm confiscation. Give young people opportunities and resources they need to resist life and crime. Anti-gang programming. Okay, that's fine. $250 million over 5 years. What's going to be the benefit? We'll have to see. Protect Canadians from gun violence. New offense for altering a cartridge. Again, this is in the trajectory of confiscation of firearms. They're restricting the cartridges. They're taking guns away. Import ammunition. Anyone importing non-prohibited ammunition must have a valid firearms license to customs officer. So they're creating more red tape. This is pretty harsh here. They're going after replica firearms, and this is going to have a real impact on paint gun businesses, and also the soft replica gun business, the air gun I meant. So this is a concern that they're taking it this far. Limit the glorification of violence in firearms, marketing and sales. What about in Hollywood? Why do they censor all the movies? If there's any glorification of firearms, it's in Hollywood. What are they going to start restricting movies? That's probably going to come next. They're going to restrict what you can watch. Require owners of firearms prohibited May 1st. This is the confiscation program. These are 1,500 firearms. They claim that they're used in the military, but there's no evidence to prove that. This is definitely a direct attack on the law-abiding firearm owner. This is an incremental step towards complete disarmament at the local level, national level, regional level across Canada. So this is really concerning, Bill C-21. You saw it in there. There's some good things like the red alert, yellow alert, but what are the mechanisms to prevent abuse? That is a real concern. But the municipal grab, this is definitely an incremental step to disarming the law-abiding Canadian firearm owner without question. It's going to, the next step would be a provincial ban on handguns, leading to a federal ban on handguns. We got C-71 1500. So the next one is going to be another thing of firearms that is coming. But something that's not talked about in Ottawa, Troy, I want to mention here, the fundamental root of this disarmament is that according to these establishment politicians, using a firearm is a privilege, not a right. So at that core right there, Troy, that is the gateway into disarming people, without question. At NCA, we support a peaceful society. At the same time, we support firearm ownership, legal firearm ownership. Also, we support the right to self-defense. Every family in Canada should have the fundamental right to self-defense, and we want that amended in the charter. And that would mean having the right to own a firearm for your right to self-defense. What they're creating in Canada is complete dependency on government. And you can see where this is going. Eventually, they're going to take more and more away, and you're going to be more and more dependent, and you're not going to be able to defend yourself. In the big scheme of things, what's going to happen? Privilege. Yes, privilege. Firearm ownership in Canada is viewed legally as a privilege, not a right. And this is creating the gateway to take your firearms away. We believe there should be a right to self-defense, which would include firearms. There should be a fundamental right to defend your family when you're in harm's way. You shouldn't have to wait for the police to show up. That may be too late, but there needs to be a fundamental right. But we're going to go to the UN document, and this will clarify things. So this is United Nations Chronicle here. Advancing disarmament within the 2030 agenda, UN Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. And this author, UN Secretary General High Representative for Disarmament Affairs, talks about it. Disarmament and arms control, a contribution to peace and security. Agenda 2030, quote, and its sustainable development goals. Remember, this is a national agenda, provides a unique opportunity to revisit this historical relationship between disarmament and development. The Sustainable Development Goals, 16, I'm going to show that one next. Emphasis on peaceful, inclusive societies, justice, strong institution, recognizes that durable peace and lasting conditions for security are necessary for long-term and development. In other words, there's a commitment through UN Agenda 2030 to take your firearm away without question. That is built into UN Agenda 2030 under Sustainable Development Goal 16. All member states, including Canada, thank you to the so-called conservatives, have committed themselves to taking such an integrated approach. The central concern for disarmament and arms control is the protection of civilians from the impact of weapons. Measures to ban, restrict certain weapons on humanitarian grounds have clear role in reducing armed violence and related deaths. And objective is 16.1. They talk about the illicit arms flow. The advancement of disarmament and arms control objectives also support the achievement of other sustainable goals from good health, quality education, gender equality, economic growth, reduced inequality, safe cities. Disarmament and arms control can advance progress in achieving Sustainable Development Goal 3 on good health and well-being. Since armed violence is leading cause of premature death and the key source of injuries, disability, psychological distress, and disease, etc., etc. Sustainable Development Goal and quality education benefits from disarmament education, which promotes a culture of peace and nonviolence. Disarmament and arms control further contributes Sustainable Development Goal 11 on safety, resilience, and sustainable cities and human settlements. And the disarmament community can contribute to more inclusive global governments. An objective expressed in Sustainable Development Targets 5.5, 16.8 to achieve greater inclusivity. We need to further promote the equal and full participation of women in all disarmament making processes and support the active participation of all states, etc., etc. I think that makes it very clear there. I'm going to turn to UN Agenda 2030 now, which will show you the actual basis for this. I'm very concerned. The agenda of 2030 is very clear. It's seeking to disarm you. And that is the agenda of the federal government, the establishment in Ottawa, incremental steps, 100% shown from that document. And it's premised on peaceful, inclusive societies. So take all our guns away. You know what's going to happen? We're going to live in tyranny. The authorities going to have all the guns. The people, the mass of the people, are not going to be able to defend themselves. And so there's no way to fight back against government. The people are basically at the mercy of the government. And this is only one aspect of this great reset that's happening. Another one is the guaranteed income. They want people dependent on government. That's another aspect. And then we got 5G. We've been talking a lot about that, but that's going to create a surveillance state through the AI through the AI technology. We already see that happening in China through its social credit system, and it's I think it's around over 500 million facial recognition cameras. I think there's a facial recognition camera, one facial recognition camera for every Chinese person right now. But we can see the surveillance grid being set up in Canada. But taking your guns away will make you vulnerable. You will not be able to protect your family. Imagine that. That's what this is the agenda. They want to disarm you and call it because it's peaceful, it's inclusive, uh, and all the stuff. Um, and they're coming at the people in the U.S., Europe, all over the world. This is going on 100%. Let's go into UN Agenda 2030 and see it for ourselves. Here's UN Agenda 2030, the actual document. I'm going to go down to section 16 because I think that's the most relevant. Please share your comments. We're going to get to them. I just want to go through this document right here. This is Agenda 2030. It was adopted in 2015, as mentioned by the Harper regime, and this is basically the agenda that's going on right now in Canada. And this is the Great Reset on the national level, without question. And it's all this flowery language, sustainable, but this document is all about global governance, disarming you, open borders, digitalized currency, attack on the nation state. Obviously, they want to disarm the nation state ultimately as well. Attack on Canadian culture, identity, everything. Global attack on Canadian citizenship, replacing it with a globalized citizenship. This is what's coming. It's all incremental steps. So I'm going to go down to 16. The goal 16 says, quote, promote peaceful, inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, inclusive institutions at all levels. So that's the core justification for disarming you. Um, they believe by disarming you, society will be peaceful and inclusive. But we know what's going to happen. You're going to be vulnerable. Criminals are going to have gun. The authorities going to have gun, but the mass of people are not, and they're going to be in severe harm's way. And if we go into the notes, under goal 6, 16.1, significantly reduce all forms of violence and related deaths everywhere. And this is another justification for disarmament. But it's okay for the authority to have all the guns and the criminals, but the people can't defend themselves, right? And it's talking about 16.3, promote the rule of law at the national, international levels, ensure access to justice for all. Yeah, take all your guns away, uh, and then the rule of law, the authorities will have the power over the people without question. They want to reduce illicit financial arms flow. Well, they want to disarm all nation states, ultimately the individual in the nation state. Broaden and strengthen the participation of developing countries in the institutions of global governance. So they want to weaken the nation state to create the global governance. Promote and enforce non-discriminatory laws and policies for sustainable development. I think you get the gist of this now. It's very clear their agenda. And as we said at the beginning, this is incremental steps. They want to disarm you to create this global governance. They're going to have the guns. The criminals will still have the guns, and you'll be left in the middle. You won't be able to protect your family. So this is what's coming. And we saw it in Bill C-21. They're going after handguns. They're already gone after a bunch of guns. And this is just the steps that's coming. So this is a reality of the situation. And this is all according to plan and agenda. Remember, the basis to UN Agenda 2030 is Agenda 21, which was adopted by Canada under the Mulroney regime in 1992. That is the global framework. And then we got to Agenda 2030, which is at the national framework. I'm just going to pop into Bill C-21. I want to show you the one last point on this, and then I want to hear from Troy. But there's a real hypocrisy in Bill C-21 that I need to show. So in here, and this is pretty telling. They want to update the definition of public officers. Provide security personnel at the Bank of Canada, the Royal Canadian Mint, with public officer status so they can possess and carry firearms considered necessary to protect their premises and the public. You see the point? You see the point of this? They don't give a damn. They don't give a damn about you. Right here. Provide security personnel at the Bank of Canada, the Royal Canadian Mint, with a public officer status so they can possess and carry firearms considered necessary to protect their premises and the public. But the public can't carry firearms to protect their premises and their families. Everything is upside down. This is the top-down agenda. The ultimate goal, as I said, is authority to have the guns. Obviously, criminals will still have their guns. They're putting the people in serious harm's way. Serious harm's way. That just shows their agenda right there, unequivocally. And also they go further, enable the government and council to designate employees of the Crown entities as public officers so they can carry any firearms for security reasons. But the public can't carry them to protect their family when someone's invading their house and wanting to do them life-threatening harm. Oh no, the public can't carry firearms. This is so clear. The agenda. Troy, I'm bringing you in now. It's unbelievable, isn't it, Troy?
Oh yeah, it's just unreal. Just full control.
Yeah, so what did you think of the UN? It's clear their agenda, isn't it?
Oh yeah, they definitely got something up, right? Yeah, it's pure control thing, and like you said, you can't protect yourself, you can't feed yourself. Look at all the sport shooters out there too. There's lots of sport shooters out there that don't even hunt, but it's a release for them, right? It's like golfing or building up a car. But yeah.
But look. But they're protecting themselves.
Yeah, from what? It's supposed to be a peaceful, inclusive society, so why do they need guns, right?
They're giving themselves more guns.
Yeah. It's unreal that they fear law-abiding citizens that are trained and paid for it. They fear them more than the criminals.
So everything's back upside down in Canada.
Oh, yeah.
It should be coming from the people, right? A free people is your greatest security, right? But it's reversed. It's top-down authoritarian regime dictating to the people. They're arming while they're disarming the public.
Yeah, makes no sense.
This is what they're doing. I'm arguing it's tied into UN Agenda 2030. I think it's pretty unequivocal. It's there in the documents. They're talking about disarming. They want to create these peaceful, inclusive societies. Ultimately, global governance. But I'm really disgusted at this. And today we were censored on Reddit. One of these NDPers just went off the edge. He was in complete denial, and then what did they do? They censor, Troy?
Yeah. He called what the hell did he call it? He called it a right-wing conspiracy theory.
There you go. The Great Reset. And Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum announced the Great Reset. It's not a conspiracy. Trudeau mentioned it.
Yeah, he mentioned it a whole bunch of times.
It's not made up. UN Agenda 2030 is not made up. Neither is UN Agenda 21. So this is part of what they're doing. They're dividing us. They're saying, "Oh, you're far right, or you're far left, or you're right, left, whatever." They divide, they vilify, and then they censor. But everything is upside down in Canada. We have a top-down authoritarian establishment regime. They're taking the guns away. They're implementing this agenda.
Yeah,
without question.
They want that divisiveness, right?
But it's in there, and then people pretend they're fighting for gun rights when they're really not. Like, you got to start with UN Agenda 2030 to have a meaningful discussion on this. But the root of this is in the privilege versus right. Troy?
Well, no, I don't think it's a privilege to own firearms. I think it's a basic human right.
No, but they argue in Ottawa, and all those establishment parties agree it's a privilege. Okay? That's what's going on. It's a privilege, so they can take them away.
Yeah.
We're arguing there should be a fundamental right to self-defense that may entail a firearm.
Well, it's not just about self-defense, too. As, like I said, I don't make a lot of money a year, and I really count on getting a moose or a deer every year to fill the freezer, too, right?
Part of your life, part of your sustaining you and your family.
Yeah, exactly. My grandparents, my great-grandparents, my dad hunted. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of they're definitely coming after people like us. This is all incremental.
Yeah.
Right? Well, they ultimately want to disarm.
It's all about control, right? You know, you kill a whole bunch of little mom and pop businesses that sell guns, and like they're going after paintballers and all that shit now.
Air guns, yeah. But this is all. But remember, this is all incremental, right?
Yeah.
They're all following this agenda.
Yeah, well, you go in little steps there and spew out the misinformation there about people who aren't educated about guns and all that, right? So just throw in the fear about criminals and loosen up criminal. The minimal sentences for criminals have now been lowered apparently, or whatever. But now they're making all of us legal gun owners criminals now.
Yeah, and they also ultimately they want to disarm us without question.
Yeah.
So this is the overarching agenda. and they're very sneaky. They do it year to year, month to month, government to government, and they just keep taking more. And a good analogy is the frog in the water, and the heat is gradually turned up,
Yeah.
right? And that's what's happening with firearms. They're gradually turning up the heat. People are accepting it, and then they're going to take more. I think the next step is a provincial handgun ban, leading to a federal one.
Yeah, no, it's crap. As Bruce D pointed out there, people in rural areas need their firearms. Just not farms and all that, right? They're wild animals, and like I said, it's pretty hard to go drive 200 miles to a shopping store and load up on meat when you can just go get a deer or a moose or something, right?
Yeah, but according to UN Agenda 2030, 21, they don't want you living in the rural area. They want everyone in the cities
Yeah.
controlled, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at these comments. This one guy says privilege. Yes, that's how they view it. They view it legally as a privilege to own and use a firearm right now, and that's something we object to without question. I'm not sure. Do you see that, Troy?
Which one's that?
It says, "Wow, they are just coming out and saying this."
No, what are they saying?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe he's referring to Bill C-21.
Yeah. Well, it's been on the news, but it's been kind of low key. Right?
Yes.
So
Bruce here is saying criminals don't care about legal gun laws. If you shoot a criminal in the process of a break-in or assault, you're going to jail. Yeah, that's true, Bruce. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, you can shoot the person who's wanting to kill you as long as they drop dead in your home.
I don't think so. I still think
I understand if they get outside, then your rights go out. But again, you're dealing with storage. How did you get the gun and out so quick, right?
you gotta be in a safe with like a trigger guard, trigger lock on it, and all that there. Right?
Yeah. By the time you get it out, right?
Yeah. By the time someone kicks in your door and stabs you 13 times, you might have a combination halfway punched in, right?
So there you go. You're already, and Bruce is right there. They're already putting the family in harm's way right there, right?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. So it shows their priority isn't the well-being of the family, protecting the family, defending the family, right? But they're all worried about protecting the government bureaucrat, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure in their gated community, they got armed guards patrolling the area too, right? So what are they scared of, right?
So he's saying, what do they get to have all the weapons? Well, they get control, ultimate control over the people.
Yeah.
Yep. And they have no reason to fear the people.
It's a lot easier to control someone when you got a gun to their head, right?
So you got the police coming over, they have guns and you don't. So who's in a position of power?
Exactly.
And who's afraid in that society? They say the best society is when the government fears the people. But we're living in a society that's increasing towards people fear the government.
Look at the country of Finland. They really don't have too much for gun laws and all that there, and they got the lowest crime rates in the world.
There you go. And look at Australia, what's happening there, New Zealand.
Yeah, exactly, right?
They're confiscating, and there's no proof that the society's safer.
Yeah, no. Look what happened in Cuba, Brazil, Venezuela. They take away all the guns there, and all these civilians just massacred, right? You can't outrun a bullet.
Yeah.
But I think it's just more than just protection. It's a way of life, hunting, and like the sport shooters. Look at the Olympics. They got shooting events there, right?
Oh, look at this. Bruce made a good point. Look at this. Just prior to 1939, the German government confiscated everyone's firearms.
Yeah. Millions of people died there.
Yeah.
And then,
Interesting. Interesting.
with Russia and Ukraine there, hold more there.
And this guy here, Boreal Beaver, he's having trouble renewing his firearm license.
Oh yeah, they're going to stall it till they pass some other bullshit law or whatever, and then Boreal Beaver he used out all of his money because he already paid, right?
Yeah. And he's asking, is there an up-to-date link for outlawed guns right now? Yes, there is. We will put in the link. It's actually in the Bill C-21 document. I'll actually show it right now quickly.
Yeah, it'd be on the government site, right?
I can show it right now, just so everyone can see it. Just give me a second. Okay, here they are. Here. These are the guns that they're confiscating. They're trying to buy back, and eventually, they're going to be of no use. And this is just part of the incremental step. Here they are, right here.
See, and they
There it is. There.
assault style firearms, like
Yeah. So go ahead, Troy. So what do you see here?
they say assault style firearms. Like, what definition is that?
Exactly. None of these are used in the military.
Well, yeah, pretty well, yeah.
And I know people who
My
used to hunt them.
Browning 3.6 could be just as deadly as
Yes. So these are all going to be taken away.
Yeah, you can keep them, but you got to take them to a gunsmith and have them deactivated.
Yeah.
Basically welded up, right? Wall hangers after that, right?
Too bad. We're going to go back to these comments now. Georgia passed a law requiring all citizens to own a gun. The crime rate dropped. You see that?
Yeah. And like Texas there too, right? Open carry.
Yeah. You're not going to mess with people. Criminals are going to think twice about entering your home.
Oh yeah. Or any business too, right?
Normal security guards are jealous of the Brinks guys. As a security guard, you have no more of a right than a normal citizen to do citizen's arrest, and no more force than necessary. So I think the Brinks guys, they're allowed to carry guns, but regular security guards are not. And right here, as a gun carrying guard, I can still be sued or charged for what I do with what authorized equipment I am allowed to use. They use the lack of education to manipulate people into incriminating themselves. Wow.
Yeah. And Boreal Beaver there, he's mentioned something good too, right? You're out on your trap line or hiking through the woods. You're going after small game birds with the 22 or something, and then all of a sudden you come across a black bear. Well, 22 is not going to stop a black bear, right? They're trying to categorize guns for the size of the animal, but there's more than one size of animal than it would preventatives there too, right?
Yes.
I was out moose hunting there last year. We stepped off the boat, go look at a good campsite there. Walked a little bit away into the bush there. I didn't bring my gun or anything with me. There's a 400-pound black bear staring at me 8 feet away. Shit, I got lucky. I slowly backed away, but hell, I would have felt a lot more safer if I had my gun with me, right?
Right.
But then again, you're toting around a rifle in the bush. It's a little bit cumbersome, so a nice handgun would have been nice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I heard a story of some hunters, American hunters up in Alaska, and they carried handguns as a last resort, and it actually saved them it saved their lives from an attack from a grizzly.
Yeah, got a grizzly bear charging at you at 40 mile an hour, and he's 20 feet away, and you got a high powered scope. Yeah, try getting that scope on and a rifle on that bear when it's running towards you.
Yeah, there was a hunter, sheep hunter, a few years ago that was killed in the Kananaskis area near Canmore, Alberta. He came across a sow and cubs, and there was a downed elk. He had his rifle with scope, like you're saying. He had no time to respond, Troy.
Pardon me?
He had no time to respond. He was killed. He was killed. Yeah.
Like I said, that animal has got to be at least 30, 40 yards away with the scope to actually get a real good sight on it, right?
Yeah, he's talking about here. There are private security companies that move a lot of gold and diamonds. They also get hired to work as civilian soldiers overseas. I am ex-military and now a security guard. They hire private people, Troy.
Yeah.
I guess that's in a different realm. That's the corporate realm. I guess the government would make exceptions there, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it depends on the jurisdiction. But the general public, they're interested in disarming people ultimately.
Yeah, but with those guards, just like any person or the PAL or a PAC or whatever, you got to go through your training and all that there, right? It's not like anyone off the street can go and become a security guard and get a gun, right? You need that training.
What's the point of the military if I can just go overseas as a civilian contract soldier?
Yep.
Yeah,
like that company, so Blackwater or whatever it is, and
yeah. So these are basically mercenaries.
Yeah.
He's trying to apply for subsistence hunting and trapping now. I've been a trapper for 4 years and would like not to have to pay for so many licenses. But that's the government grab on people, right?
Yeah.
And they're making it difficult.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure part of those funds actually go to like conservation officers and all that too, which you actually kind of need, right?
Right. And Bruce says people in rural areas need their firearms without question. But you could argue people in urban areas need them. There's a lot of crime in urban areas.
Yeah, crime and wild animals.
Yeah, exactly.
One farmer there, just outside of Selkirk here in Manitoba, there he, helped a cow give birth to a calf, and he was covered with the fluid and all that there or whatever, and all of a sudden a black bear comes walking around the corner of his building there, chased him up a tree, killed him. Bang! If that guy had a handgun, he probably would be alive still today, right? Just as an example there, right? But,
yeah. This is really bad. The ban on airsoft guns. You won't even be able to own them. And I know people back east in Quebec, and they're passionate. They love that recreational activity, where you get into a combat situation with these replicas.
Yeah.
And they're taking that away.
Yeah, which is just totally stupid because I've never heard of anyone killed by an airsoft gun.
So I would argue this is part of the incremental step, Troy, of disarming people. They don't want They don't want people using them for recreation. And part of UN Agenda 2030, again, is to push people out of the rural areas into urban areas so they can control them there.
Yeah.
And he's saying there are a lot of Canadians that fight for the U.S. military, Troy.
I would imagine there are.
Yeah, probably are.
Well, I'm sure the Canadian forces, they team up with the Americans right over in Afghanistan and all that. So
He's worried about a slingshot being banned.
yeah, why not?
That's not bad. What about a compound bow, crossbow?
Yeah, well, you can kill a person with the pencil too, so you might as well ban those too, right?
Those compound bows are deadly. Crossbows deadly. Lethal, man. Extremely lethal. At
And they're
up to what's that?
And they're quiet.
Very quiet. I that's what I hunt with, a compound bow, but God forbid, man, they're going to put regulations on that. They're going to go after that next, probably.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
And eventually, like Boreal Beaver says, slingshots too, right?
Yeah. Eventually.
People hunt their grouse and all that with slingshots.
So they basically want to completely disempower people.
Yep, they want to take away your ability to take care of yourself.
And that's like the universal income as well. You're going to be completely a slave of the government.
Yeah.
You're going to have no means to defend yourself. If an intruder comes in your home and your family, you can't defend yourself unless with a kitchen knife, unless they ban kitchen knives, right?
Yeah. I'm sure they'll take away all the sharp knives too, right? So,
baseball bats.
baseball
bats, what if they come in with a handgun? What are you going to do with that?
Run, call 911, tell the guy to time out.
But shouldn't protection of the family unit be at the core of what we're looking at?
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, everything is upside down. Bruce says, I mainly train with he's responding. I mainly train with American soldiers while posted in Edmonton. They mainly bring in all their big rigs and air support. I do a lot of artillery. Jamaicans for Air Force. Many new Canadians. And that, through Agenda 2021, 2030, that will just become an extension of global governance.
Yeah,
as you can see through the UN peacekeeping, right?
They want to de-arm the military too, eventually, also too, in that agenda, right?
But also, it'll be just a tool of the globalists.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and eventually, you could argue the military is going to be cramping down on the public, right?
Yeah, those that will follow that command. I'm sure if that ever happens, there's going to be a lot of Canadian soldiers and American soldiers.
Yeah. Thanks,
because they're going to refuse that order to fire on their own people, right?
Stand up for Canada. I love NCA. All you are freedomers and lovers. Yeah, it's a serious situation, Lizzie. These documents aren't made up. This is their overall agenda. They're very sneaky. Remember the frog in the water? They turn up the temperature slowly, so you kind of you're not reacting so strongly. Eventually, it'll be boiling. It's very troubling what's going on. But we're going to dig deeper here. Yeah, this is interesting. He's saying it seems we don't have much mortars when it comes to the military nowadays with so much cross training. Troy?
Yeah, it's like we're at issues with China there, but we're still doing military training with China.
See, that's all part of the globalist agenda, right?
Yes, doesn't make sense to me. I don't see China as an ally.
In the trapping word, they have changed the laws, so you basically have to target the specific animal with the specific gun you carry. I towed over and under a 22 and a 20 gauge shotgun is legal. It
Yeah,
depends
well,
on the regulations, Troy.
yeah, well, they're trying to make you use a specific caliber for a certain animal. But like that, if you're out in the middle of the woods, there's more than one side of an animal. If you're out hunting a small game with a 22 and a 20 gauge shotgun, 20 gauge is a small shotgun, right? And all of a sudden, a big huge bear comes after you. Well, that 20 gauge is probably just going to bounce off its head, and you're going to get mauled.
Yeah.
Right? You know? But then, most hunters have the common sense. They're not going to use a 300 Winchester Magnum and go after rabbits, right?
Yeah.
It's just common sense type of deal thing. But
this guy says guns are a responsibility. Yes, of course they're a responsibility of the owner to use them safely. But they're more than a responsibility. They're a way of life for some people.
Yeah.
A means of subsistence, a means of joy, recreationally,
yeah,
a means of protection, right?
and sports too. There's a lot of competitions out there just for rifles and handguns and 3-gun and all that, right? Yeah.
Look at the biathlon. Is it the biathlon?
Yeah, biathlon, yeah, the
Yeah,
speed 22.
yeah, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, and then they got that 3-gun, whatever that's a rifle, pistol, and a shotgun competitions there, and then
Yeah.
long range sport shooting, and yeah, it's
We'll have to keep an eye on that to see if it's phased out.
pardon me.
We'll have to watch and see if it's phased out.
Yeah, well, see what happens there, right?
Bruce says, I'm afraid life will have to get much more restrictive before Canadians, I guess other Westerners as well, see the problem with the UN and the globalists. Troy?
Yeah, well, lot of problem there. A lot of those people don't really contribute to society, anyways. So they're just looking. They're happy getting their handouts and following whatever rule that they have to, right?
Yeah. And look at this. And Bruce says, just hope the cop can find your house in some rural areas.
Yeah.
So you have someone who's robbing you or wanting to harm you. You're waiting for the cop to come to protect you.
Yeah, well, it's that Bushy there or whatever in Alberta there. And, the young native guy there that accidentally got shot. Well, him and his buddy there on a crime spree, and they kicked the crap out of like an 80-year-old lady there the farm before they went into that Bruce guy's there place there where he accidentally shot him after he tried getting run over, right?
Right. So this comment, Troy, white lives matter?
I think every life matters. There's a lot of responsible gun owners that are just more than white. I've seen East Indians and Asians and all that there at rifle ranges and all that there. It's not just white lives.
Of course. But do you think the government would has that perspective? All lives matter? It seems like it's focused on its own existence.
Yeah, pretty well. Yeah, I don't think they. It's that's a really tough question. But like I said, it's more than just white lies. Look at the natives. How many natives depend on going out and getting meat for their family because they're stuck on some reserve, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very troubling, the disconnect between the people and the government.
Yeah.
And look at this. Knives have already been banned in the UK.
Yeah, unreal.
Oh my God. See, it's coming.
Yeah. Well, it's Yeah, there's globalism, the control. That's how the pyramids got built. I don't think anyone volunteered for that very willingly, right?
And Bruce was saying most U.S. soldiers refuse to confiscate weapons, but if they get the order to do so, they're going to be obligated to do
Yeah,
it, right?
right there. That'd be a on the spot moment. Who are you disarming? Are you just local people, or are you going after the bad guys to disarm them? Right?
Yeah. Well, look at Australia. Look at the confiscation there. They went after the law-abiding owner.
Yeah, yeah. You're still allowed to have rifles and all that there, but I'm pretty sure it's heavily regulated. And I'm not too sure about semi-automatics, but I know the automatics were banned.
They seized a lot of arms.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And they obviously did the same in New Zealand, but
yeah, well, New Zealand, that was just a pure emotional response, right?
well, yeah, I'm not going to go there, but there's a lot of false flags. So, are these things happening to create the conditions to do something else? Right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm being careful the way I'm saying it because I don't want us to get censored, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, I just like at Polytechnique here in Canada there. You really dig into it there. It's not about what they're saying there. There's more issues than that what happened right there, right? But they're just using that as a springboard to just start things rolling. But there's a lot of things that people don't know about that Polytechnique. Right?
Exactly. And that's one bad apple, Troy.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're punishing so many innocent people.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Right. So
spread the fear in uneducated people, right?
are you gonna someone use a van like in Toronto, that guy, and he rammed into people? Are you gonna start banning vans?
Yeah.
Or up in Edmonton, the guy used the U-Haul to ram into people. Are you going to start banning the renting? There's if someone wants to harm someone, the means of doing so is almost endless.
Yeah, you could rattle off like 2,000 different things that aren't even considered weapons that would kill a person. A rock
Yeah,
a person.
yeah. But my big concern is authorities having all the guns and the public not.
Yeah.
I have real issue with that. And if you get into a government that's tyrannical, like Bruce mentioned in 1939, the German government banning guns, it puts the public at its mercy.
Yeah, just like what's happening in Cuba, Venezuela, Brazil. Take away all the civilians' arms, they got no way to protect themselves, and they're just getting slaughtered.
Yeah, exactly. Look at this. The reality of the Canadian military is that only a select bunch get their weapon all the time. Most cases, it's locked up in a vault and only issued to you when there are standing orders. Troy?
Yeah. And so, I don't know, I'm pretty sure the only reason why they locked them up there is probably because of a few things they're probably going to go missing.
And look at this. Troy, Ruby Ridge. And you know about that, right? So this was a family, I think it was in Montana, but there was an altercation with the I think it was a local or state police, and it spun out of control. Eventually, there was like SWAT teams on the house. They ended up killing the wife, a son, and there was a standoff for a whole number of days. But he was charged. He was set up, I believe, by the FBI for selling. I believe it was a sawed-off shotgun. He was trying to make money, and then they went after him, and it just blew out of control. But that's a good example, excellent one, because that's an example of the authority having the guns over the people, and you saw what the outcome was.
Yeah.
They completely destroyed that family. Thank you, Boral Beaver, for sharing your insights tonight. Thank you for all the 5G coverage you do. I'm in Hornpain, Ontario. There's a huge tower here. It's a Bell headquarters for North here with major CNREL and biomass plants. Uh, yeah, please send us some photos, Boro, at info@nationalcitizensalliance.ca. We'd be really interested in getting those photos, and then we can follow up with you. It doesn't sound good, but yeah, that's the first step. We'd be really interested. Okay. Sorry. Uh, laugh out loud.
Didn't catch
Uh,
that name, eh?
I guess I'm in trouble now, eh? I'm kind of what am I doing? I'm kind of discriminating gender wise. No, I'm kidding. But yeah. Send us photos of it. We'd be really interested in seeing them, and then we'll follow up with you. This is a serious concern. The 5G, it's tied into UN Agenda 2030. Obviously, it's creating the basis for what's called the AI technocracy. And obviously, the public armed is not part of that vision. They want so called peaceful, inclusive societies. But we would argue at NCA that a peaceful society is going to come from free people with them responsibly armed. And the founders of the U.S. government, they know this. The whole U.S. Constitution is built upon protecting from tyranny. That's why they had the right to bear arms in their Constitution. Um, and there's been a lot of good political books written on the importance of holding, empowering the public against tyrannical governments, like we saw in Germany. You are the only guys. Yeah, no, nice. I thought that was obvious. Yeah.
No, I have to say to Bruce D there, thanks for your service.
Oh yeah, 100%. And my fear for the military is them getting put in harm's way, Troy.
Yeah, they're going to be caught in a catch-22 position, right?
They're going to be told what to do. They're going to be following this UN agenda. They're going to be working for the globalists.
Yeah, but like I said, a lot of them are probably going to refuse, and they're going to be thrown in a brigade, right? The brigade or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. They said we're the only group talking about 5G. Well, yeah, well, that's sad. That's a sad reality, but hats off to ourselves. We have to talk about 5G because we see the big picture. We know it's the technological gateway for what they're doing. Without question, we have to expose it.
Yeah.
And that's what NCA is about. We're going to talk about any issue. We're not afraid to talk about firearms. There's a lot of Canadians that are afraid of firearms.
Yeah, all for the wrong reasons, though, too, right?
100%. So, we want the safeguards. We don't want someone who's mentally ill owning a firearm. But we need to make sure that there's proper process so innocent people are not denied. But this whole thing about privilege versus right shows where Ottawa is coming from, right?
I have no right for protection. I got no right to feed myself.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's what we got to fight. This country's upside down. I argue that we're living in a top-down, soft tyranny right now. And there's so many different layers. There's multi-controlled opposition. There's fake media. There's conforming justice system to the establishment, right? There's a revolving door to big corporate boardrooms, right? The whole thing. But that's what we're living right now. The Army is in harm's way from the start. Yeah, 100%. I said no to the H1N1 vaccine. They forced me to have one anyways while in the Army. They don't care, but the soldiers care about each other 100%. It has to be that way. Being in the Army is very scary, Troy.
Oh yeah,
Because you're under direct orders all the time. And if you don't conform to what they want, you're going to be court-martialed.
You need some sort of order,
But you see what I'm saying? They're in a very vulnerable position being in the Army.
oh yeah,
Because that's the ultimate form of top-down authoritarianism.
like I said, your morals are kind of gone there, right? You don't want to do it, but you got to do it. And if you don't do it, well, then you're shit out of luck. I'm sure Bruce there would be able to put a little bit more insight on that. Right?
Look at this. Bruce just read an article. U.S. fire station forced the government to move a 5G antenna because it caused headaches, nosebleeds, insomnia.
Yeah, so
and those antennas, those 5G antennas, are very powerful in the U.S.
The one tower can go 30 some odd kilometers.
Yeah, but they have a frequency. Some of them can. I think the FCC, they've already approved antennas up to 70, 80, 90 gigahertz frequency.
Yeah, and on one of your subjects there, I think it was 3.5 gigahertz was harmful too, right? So.
Yeah, this is really troubling. Do you have any closing remarks, Troy?
Look, like I said, I'm a member of the CCRF there. And that's pretty well the only people that are actually fighting for our rights. But it's like I said, you got to get the education out there. All the people that fear guns and don't have guns, like, then why are they punishing us, not the criminals? Laxing minimum sentences for criminals. Just going after the wrong people right there. Not making anyone any safer doing that.
Yeah, but remember, this is part of a bigger agenda, right?
Yeah, well, like I said, Canadian people have to learn what Agenda 21 is in 2030 and actually really read it. Like a lot of those, everything in the Agenda 21 and 2030 there is so vague that, might mean one thing, but there's 3 or 4 different ways that you can go on it, right? It's so vague. It's just scary.
Yeah. So we're going to close this off tonight. I want to thank everyone for their comments. Pretty interesting insight. And Boro Beaver, we're looking forward to receiving those photos. We want everyone just try to be aware of these incremental steps. It could be in 5G. It's the same thing incrementally with the EMF radiation. It's increasing, so you may not notice the health effects. There's a surveillance grid that's being deployed. Keep aware in your communities. Contact us, share photos, and we'd be happy to come out there. And Bruce says they need the 5G for a social credit system enforcement, just like in China. Yeah, 100%. We already have a political credit system online where they're obviously doing political censorship. We've been under a shadow ban on Facebook since October 16th.
Reddit now too.
But really bad. But this firearms is really troubling. It's going to disempower you. It's going to disempower in so many ways. And it's going to make our society as a whole extremely unsafe when there's a certain group that has all the guns and the public in general doesn't. But this is the long-term goal of UN Agenda 2030, to disarm people locally, but also disarm the nation state. So the trajectory of this is a global tyranny. And in our opinion, we're living in a soft tyranny now in Canada. So let's be aware of there's so many different layers to this. Be very careful of the division. All the control is premised on division, left, right, liberal, conservative. Then they go far right, far left. Don't play the game. Stick to the facts and